Trang, it's fantastic to have you on the podcast.
Kate, thank you so much for having me, and I'm very looking forward to our conversation to come.
And so am I. So, Trang, you've had an extraordinary life. You've changed careers. You're a second generation Vietnamese Australian. There are lots of challenges that come with all of those things. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you ended up changing careers.
Absolutely. Every time I get asked this question, I'm like, how much time do we have? Because I could go real deep into this. To share at a higher level, yes, Kate, you're right. So I was born here in Melbourne to Vietnamese immigrant parents. My grandparents were refugees. And because of that, I grew up with traditional Vietnamese upbringing. And I'm so grateful for that now. But when I was young, I didn't appreciate it so much because learning to speak Vietnamese before I could even speak English, that didn't serve me in school. And at school, I was that kid who was in the corner on her own, surrounded by other kids playing in what seems like an alien language. And growing up, because of that, I did become quite withdrawn and quiet. I thought that I didn't have a place. I remember even in high school, as soon as the bell rang for lunch, I would rush from my locker, from the classroom to my locker to grab my lunch and disappear. I wanted to eat and study by myself instead of sit and talk with other people. And yet now I am a speaker and a speaking coach. And it seems like such a contrast, and it doesn't seem to make sense. But I have lived multiple lifetimes. I graduated university as a physiotherapist, and working as a physiotherapist, I was quite sporty. So that's what drew me to that career. I was generally doing well. I was comfortable. I was happy. But I did have a particular morning that changed everything. And we may go into this in more detail. But yeah, this particular morning started what I call my quarter life crisis. And I think we all go through this in one form or another, because when we grow up and when we leave school and we enter into the adult world, we start to rapidly learn more about ourselves and about life. And what we knew about ourselves, what we knew about the world, that image and that idea starts to shift. And I started to question the decisions I'd made. I'd started to question what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Essentially, the biggest question for me was, how can I live my life in a way that's going to make as much of a difference to this world, as much of a difference as possible? And I started to question how I could work with people, not just as athletes, but as human beings. And I started to see how if I worked with more people comprehensively at a deep level as a coach, helped them with their mindset, helped them to achieve and fulfill their potential, then more people in this world could thrive. And how I saw it was, when more people thrive, then humanity will thrive. And then when humanity thrives, then the world will thrive for all of us and for future generations.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So that thought process, that quarter life crisis, it started me down the journey of starting my business. I initially was a life and mindset coach. I stepped away from physiotherapy eventually, and that really opened up my world. I started working with a lot of business owners, a lot of people in leadership, because if they can help people in their communities, in their world, that I cannot touch myself, then my impact can be expanded even more. And then eventually I realized that throughout all of these chapters of my life, my greatest strength was my ability to move people with my voice, whether it's helping them to run a marathon or to start a business or to garner the courage to speak in front of 1,000 people. And that's when I decided to go all in on what my superpower was. So I went all in on speaking coaching, so I could help more leaders and more people use their voice and to create their vision into reality, to lead powerful movements and to serve their purpose on this planet.
I love that. I love the idea of, and the courage it takes to actually lean into what you truly believe, and what you talk about humanizing people, humanizing this. We live in a world which is very much us and them. Social media has created a whole different sort of dialogue than we previously had before, but we are hardwired for social connection and for good. And that's what I'm hearing is that this quarter life crisis, you have you've channeled that connection and using your voice powerfully. You came from a background of being isolated because of language and a whole range of different things. Where does the resilience come from to turn that around, to be able to lean into something that you believe so much?
The first thing that comes to my mind actually is something that I haven't really spoken about before. But when you asked and you mentioned resilience, I had an image flash into my mind. So I mentioned that my grandparents were refugees. And whenever I went over to my grandparents' house, which was every week, we were very family oriented, we were a very tight-knit family. I remember that there was a big framed photo on the wall. And that photo was of a refugee boat. And I can't remember if it was actually the one that my grandpa was on, but it was a photo maybe from a newspaper at the very least. And I remember seeing that from such a young age, being exposed to what other people go through. And my parents from a young age, they also taught me and they also shared quite horrific stories from the Vietnam War. So from a young age, I was exposed to these things and I started to see how humans can go through so much, like life or death scenarios that I am very grateful I probably don't ever have to face in that way. But that showed me how good I have it and how even if I am getting bullied or even if people are judging me or I'm facing rejection as I'm applying for jobs, like that is nothing compared to what my family have been through. Various members of my family, other people out there in this world. And I think that subconsciously, without me even realizing it, started to shape my view of the world and the resilience that I carried. And yeah, like I haven't really shared that before because I haven't thought of it. But the way that you framed that question, Kate, I think you brought that up in me. But of course, there are other things as well because when I was in school, like I said, I had people who saw me as different because of the way that I was. And I remember there was a moment where I transitioned from primary school to high school and I had my eyes opened up to how different things can be. Because in primary school, I was a kid who couldn't speak English. I didn't have a lot of friends. And as soon as I went to the orientation day in my high school, it was like turning a fresh page. And people were wanting to talk to me. People wanted to be my friend. And I was so surprised. I was like, whoa, I feel like I'm a completely different person. And what that made me realize was people's judgment of us or our sense of self-worth, it's so arbitrary based on different contexts. Where you might not be as valued in one area, you're going to be so valued and so worthy in another area. And that made me realize that other people's judgments, they are transient. They're arbitrary. They're not even real, you could say. Because where someone thinks that you're not smart enough or not pretty enough or not special enough, then in another context of your life, you're seen as incredibly smart and incredibly worthy. So I started to realize that, that also got reconfirmed, I remember, in year 8 when my mum purchased a book for me. And it was a book by Miranda Kerr called Treasure Yourself. It's got this beautiful pink cover, perfect for a teenage girl. And I remember reading how Miranda Kerr was bullied when she was in school as well. She was bullied for her height, for how thin she was. And yet at that time, she was everywhere because she was a supermodel on the Victoria's Secret stage because of her height, because of her leanness. So I started to have these ideas reaffirmed to me that people's judgments, they're arbitrary. So we can't make decisions. We can't see ourselves through the lens of another in that way. We have to detach ourselves from their judgments, from opinions, and do what we believe is right for us.
That's incredible self-awareness. Incredible self-awareness at such a young age that you transition from primary school to high school and you notice that difference. And that's powerful, but it also then potentially tells me that you've had such an interesting life, that you are mindful of these things. And the gift that comes from the challenges that we have in life is that we can sometimes see things that other people can't see. It's a gift. And so your resilience and your self-awareness is something which is you that now are gifting back to the community through the work that you do. How beautiful is that?
Yeah, very much so. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing about the self-awareness. I think in hindsight, I can articulate this so much more clearly than I could at the time.
Of course.
But I think it was quite maybe a subconscious thing where I was like, people actually like me here. People want to talk to me here. And I just ran with it and I made the most of it. It was almost like fake it till you make it. I was like, I don't feel like I'm popular, but I'm going to utilize the fact that people want to be my friend. So I got to have that experience and have my eyes open to a different reality.
I just it's fantastic, and the fact that you did run with it is a gift to us all. Tell us about. I'm intrigued about how then you apply all of this in leadership, and you have an enlightened model. Can you talk us through that through your
Yeah, for
model?
sure. Absolutely. So what you're talking about, Kate, is what I call the enlightened model or the thriving three. And it's the three pillars that I believe are required for someone to truly thrive and achieve high performance in their life. And those three pillars are the body, the mind, and the heart. So I'll walk you through those three pillars. The first one being the body. It's not just about physical health, like going to the gym, but it's about taking action. So our ability to take action in our life to create results and create achievements that we want for ourselves. And then there's the mind. The mind is our ability to have that self-awareness, to have the knowledge required to achieve certain things, to have the intelligence and the ability to know what we need to achieve what we need to achieve. And then lastly is the heart. And this is the pillar that took me the longest to understand. And I think that is often the case in society because it's not so often talked about. But the heart, to me, is the combination of our emotions and our spiritual self, if that's something that you believe in. Essentially, it's not just doing things and not just being strategic or being motivated with our mind. It's being emotionally connected to what we do. It's about feeling passionate about what we do. And I learned this the hard way during my quarter life crisis when I was so focused on results by taking action with my body. And I was so focused on motivation and mindset. But I felt deep inside a bit empty. I felt dissatisfied and unfulfilled with where my life was going. And we know that's the case because there are plenty of very successful and accomplished people, but they're walking shells of a human being. So how I see it is all of these three pillars are required for someone to thrive. And if any one pillar is missing, we will be one step short of truly thriving. For example, if you have the mindset and you take action with your body and you physically do things, then yes, you will have performance, but you could be empty. You could be unsatisfied. Dissatisfied. That's the correct. Dissatisfied. If you don't take action, but you have all the mindset and all the strategies in the world, and you are connected with your heart, and you know that this is aligned to your heart's calling and this is aligned to your life's purpose, but you don't take action, then you're going to have a lot of passion, but that passion isn't going to actualize into anything tangible. And then lastly, if you have the heart and the body, but you don't have the mindset and you don't have the strategy, you'll have persistence. You'll take action time and time again, but it's not necessarily the most strategic and the most progressive action. So you'll be rowing the boat really, really hard, but you're going in the wrong direction and it's not actually getting you to where you need to go. So if any one pillar is missing, you'll always be just one step short of truly thriving. And that's why when I work with my clients, that's why when I do my own reflection, I make sure that I am developing and I am honoring all three pillars in my life.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I can apply that very easily to my own experience and to think about clients that we work with and how that applies. And I think I see a lot of leadership which is in the action. Not always enough heart.
Yes.
Not enough heart.
Because the heart, it's qualitative.
Yes.
It's not measurable. So it's not easy to get excited by it.
Mm.
You don't get to see people's big results or the money that a company has made or someone's accomplishments in terms of the material things they've gained in their life. You can't measure it, so then it's not as idolized as the tangible things. But how I see it is day to day, we're living within our own body and we are waking up and going to bed within our own bodies, feeling what we're feeling. So it doesn't matter if we've got all of the accomplishments or all of the material possessions, if we don't feel fulfilled and we don't feel the love and we don't feel happy in ourselves.
Yeah. So how does this then relate to speaking, to our voices? Because I'm sure it has quite a strong connection.
Absolutely. When I coach people and leaders on their speaking, a big part of what I focus on is how they can speak, how they can deliver their words and their message with more authority, with more confidence, with more engagement. But really, the practical side of speaking is simply the last step to someone being able to effectively use their voice. It's the last step because prior to someone even standing on stage and speaking in front of thousands of people or effectively leading a team, they've got to be able to be their best within themselves. And I know this can seem a little bit vague, but what I mean by that is how many people are passionate about a topic and want to create a certain change in this world, but they are lacking the mind. They're lacking confidence in themselves. They think, oh, who am I to be able to speak? Who am I to be able to lead? Like, I want to, but I don't believe I can. So I'm not going to try and I'm not going to really put myself out there. And because of that, they're never going to even reach the stage where they can effectively speak up. Or if someone has the motivation and they have the strategy in their mind, but they're not passionate about what they're speaking about, you can sniff that out so easily, can't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure we've all come across leaders in
Yeah.
different organizations who might be there for reasons other than they really believe in what it is that they're there for. Maybe it was an opportunity that came up and it was well paid, or maybe it was just something that fell into their lap. And you can tell when someone's heart isn't in their message or isn't in what it is that they're doing. So the last pillar, the body, that is the practical. So how you speak and how you show up, being disciplined enough to put yourself out there, being ready to do the work that you need to get to that position of leadership. So this is all related to someone fulfilling their potential in any regard. And as a speaker, as a leader, that is how it plays into being an effective leader who can use their voice.
Yeah. And I find what you're saying is so true. If people are not, if they don't have a passion, if they don't believe what they're doing, if they don't have a heart in it, that's really apparent. There's also a confidence. So you might have passion, but you lack that confidence. So the head piece. And I see this a lot. I work with a lot of leaders who end up being leaders because they're really good at something else. So they're subject matter experts. They're passionate about their subject. They know their subject matter deeply and well and all those things, but they don't necessarily feel confident as leaders and they don't know how to lead. And that lack of confidence can then unintentionally undermine the relationships within the team. Yet the team could function very well if the leader felt more confident and just trusted themselves more.
Yes.
Is this something that you work with people?
Yes, absolutely. And I really hear what you're saying there. And as you were sharing that and sharing your observations, I've got to say that is much more common than people would think. People think that when it comes to their speaking, they just need to learn how to speak with more engagement, how to storytell better, how to work a stage. And I'm like, it's not just in those practical things. It's the step preceding being able to even execute any of that is, do you truly believe in yourself? And it can seem wishy-washy because, once again, it's not a quantitative thing, it's qualitative. But it shows up in every little thing, like the way that we walk, the way that we talk, our subtle mannerisms. It shows up tangibly as those actions, those behaviors. So it is really important. And leaders want to make a difference. I'm sure that a lot of these leaders, they're here because they want to help people, they want to make a difference, but they got this opportunity because they were good at something else.
Yeah.
And because of that, there are ways that I believe you can develop your confidence. And I don't believe it's faking it till you make it. I don't believe it's that at all. I believe you need to consciously and intentionally create your confidence. Because confidence isn't just something that appears out of nowhere. Like, you can't just wake up one day and be like, I'm feeling confident today. I actually went skydiving recently, so I'll use this as an example. It's very tangible, right? I spoke to my skydive instructor and I was like, so how many dives do you have to do before you become qualified as an instructor? And he said, yeah, a lot of dives. It's over 1,000. They have to jump out of a plane 1,000 times before they are qualified to take someone else, which makes sense. That makes me feel more secure jumping out of that plane. But that, I think, is such a clear example of, you have to do something to become confident. He's not casually jumping out of a plane because he woke up one day like that. He did 1,000 dives to then be in a place where, yep, it's just another day. I'm jumping out of a plane 10 times today as part of my shift. So it's not that you have confidence to do something. You have to do something to get confidence. So I believe that we are responsible for creating our own confidence.
I love that. So can you give me an example of that things you can do to create that confidence? What does that look like?
Yeah. There's a concept that is called embodied cognition. And this concept talks about how our feelings can be mirrored in our body. So people often think it's the other way around. Oh, if I'm feeling nervous, then I make myself smaller with my body. And if I'm feeling confident, I stand up tall. Yes, our body is mirrored in our feelings. But embodied cognition, the science has shown that it goes the other way around as well. Our body will feed back into how we feel. And I'm sure you've heard this before. Everyone talks about how even if you're not feeling happy, just smile. Like, even if you fake a smile, you'll feel more happy.
Yeah.
Now, this works with confidence. And science has shown that if you power pose for 2 minutes, and power pose is standing with your feet apart, arms out, and that way you make your body bigger, right? I've got a photo on top of a volcano that I hiked and I'm standing like that, victory pose. If you power pose for 2 minutes, like, get this, you will increase your testosterone by 20%. You will decrease your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, by 25%. And because of that, you will immediately create a greater feeling of confidence and more willingness to take risks. So this is the secret that the pros don't tell you about. Like, they are power posing for 2 minutes before they stand on stage. They are power posing in the morning at 5 a.m. when they wake up. Or for me, because I'm not that much of an early morning person, maybe 6:30 a.m., 7 a.m. Like, power pose to create that feeling of confidence. So that's one very specific way. Another way that I am a big fan of, and this is one that I used so much when I started on my journey, is the process of visualization. And I'm such a fan of this because if you think about growth and achieving new levels of leadership, achieving new levels of our career or our business or our profession, of course, every time that we level up, it's a new level. It's uncharted territory and we've never been there before. So of course, no wonder we feel a bit of nervousness or we doubt ourselves because we've never seen ourselves in that position before. Versus if we were to get into a car and drive to work, we've done that all the time. So we don't feel nervous about it. We know that we can do it and we've got the evidence that we can do it. So our brain doesn't actually know the difference between a very powerful visualization and reality. That's why sometimes when we dream, and this is a little bit different, but still it's related. Sometimes when we dream at the time or later on, we get confused. Did that actually happen, or was it just a dream? So if we want to feel more confident in our ability to lead a team of 30 people, or our ability to stand on stage in front of 500 people, and we've never done that before, what should we do? Visualize it.
Yeah.
And when we create a strong visualization, once again, the science has shown we can actually create new neural pathways in our brain that convince our brain that this is something that we've done before. It increases our sense of confidence. So you bet that before my TEDx talk, I was visualizing myself standing on that red dot, speaking to a full room. I was doing that before I reached like financial milestones in my business, because I didn't think that I could get there. I was like, I'm just this little girl, this Vietnamese girl. Who am I to be making this much money? But I visualized it. And the way that I visualized it was I included the 5 senses. That's what makes a visualization real. Because that's reality. As humans, we perceive our entire reality through 5 senses. So we need to make sure that we're not just seeing this image, we need to also hear what sounds there are. What are the smells in that moment? What are we tasting in that moment? What are we feeling in that moment? How are we walking? How are we talking? And when we visualize a comprehensive image and all of the sounds and smells and tastes and feelings, then it becomes more real. And if you were to do that every day for 1 week leading into a big event or something that you're feeling nervous about, watch yourself feel different about going into that event after the 7th time. Your brain's going to think you've done it before and you'll feel a lot more confident.
That is fantastic. I love that. I love that so much. It makes me think of Wonder Woman.
The power pose. Yes.
Power pose.
The Wonder Woman's pose.
Yeah. Because I often tell people, because in my conflict work, is when you're feeling small, stand big, do the Wonder Woman pose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because it does. You can feel it in your body. It's a different pose. It's a bit like when you're having to make a difficult have a difficult conversation or make a difficult call. Stand up. Don't sit down. Right. But I love the idea of visualization with using the senses. I have never thought about using the senses. I've only ever thought about visualizing it, but not trying to hear it. And that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the visualization is, if we go back to the Enlightened Model, the visualization is essentially priming our mind, isn't it?
Yeah.
But remember, like to everyone listening, remember that there's a reason there are 3 pillars. And we can't just visualize ourselves into all of our achievements.
No.
We need to also do it. We need to put ourselves out there. We need to do the thing that we are visualizing to strengthen that evidence and that image of ourselves. So yeah, it's one step that is very powerful. But remember, it is the full process that is going to get you to truly transform your sense of self and where you could go in your life.
Yeah. What an extraordinary conversation. Thank you, Trang. This has just been fantastic. I have learnt so much this morning, and I am inspired by you. I'm inspired by your resilience and what you've brought to the world as a result of taking action and having belief in yourself. It's just extraordinary. Thank you so much for being our guest on this podcast, and let's stay in touch. This is fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kate. I really do hope that what I've shared today is going to be helpful for the listeners. I love to make these as practical as possible. So if anyone tries any of the things that I've talked about, whether it's the visualization or the power posing, then please do write in and let us know.
That'll be wonderful. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Wanna hear you go.